If you watch this video and tell me you wouldn't be tilted, you'd be lying. Or perhaps you would be telling the truth, perhaps you do have a healthy grasp over your emotional functionalities, so as not to be goaded into reaction when being metaphorically poked with a stick. But I'm going to assume you would just be lying because that allows me to instill a sense of moral superiority, as after all, what is being human, if not one big journey to find ways to look down upon other humans. So I'm going to show you the highlights of this game and we'll discuss the levels of tilt going on. Let's start at the beginning, the best place to start. Unless it's Suicide Squad, in which case you should start at the end and also finish there.
Behold the voice of God.
But where does League of Legends start? Obviously when you press play. That moment where you say to yourself, my life has reached a point where I view the current best decision to be playing a game that ceaselessly and inevitably causes pain, sorrow and heartbreak, hoping for the off chance that I get a match that doesn't add to the infinitely expanding dark matter of my soul. But outside of that, there's nothing too tilting about it. What about when the game started and you're in your first jungle clear, about to enter your top side and you see the enemy jungler level 2 with double buffs? Is that tilting? Well, it is a little bit irritating, admittedly. I mean, it kind of throws me off my pathing, forces me to adapt and try to take his red buff instead. It's a bit cheesy, but hey, it happens. I mean, his red buff is just sitting there calling for me to take it. It reminds me of that time when I was having an inappropriate conversation in class and I was overheard by my teacher. This was the kind of teacher that would wear knitted jumpers that were excessively tight, the type that can only realistically be explained through ignorance, and definitely not the case of a middle-aged woman stuck in a vanilla marriage starved of male attention. So naturally when she called me up to the front, I knew she'd want to see me at lunchtime, which she did. And as a repressed 40-something-year-old woman, she was filthy. She was into roleplay. She'd play the teacher giving a detention, and I'd play the student receiving detention. And in this game, I was role-playing a jungler about to take a red buff, and the red buff was role-playing NA's World's appearance outside of group stage. It was non-existent. At this time, I'd realised the enemy jungler had done both his buff camps before invading me with a late level 2. A totally standard, efficient, and smart jungle path to take. Is that tilting? Well, it's something I definitely wasn't expecting. It's a revolutionary strategy, so brimming with intelligence that I can only conclude he watches Rick and Morty 3 seasons into the future. And as such, I was getting smashed around by it like a blind man competing in total wipeout. But outside of that, there's nothing too tilting about it. Lee Sin's invades were so frequent, I can only assume he was a descendant of either Attila the Hun or the Burning Legion. One time my blue buff where he invaded with no flash, no collapse priority and no full health bar and walked away scot-free, and another where he came too late, too low level and too isolated from help, but still skips away no problem. Is that tilting? Well, to the Philistinian and untrained eye, it would appear as though he's getting away with rather risky plays that he should have been stuffed up the chuff for. But to those with an enlightened vision, what we are bearing witness to is nothing less of a surgically conceived and flawlessly executed example of what can only be described as nothing short of League of Legends poetry. And here I am, forced to reflect upon my humble dumbassery, leaving me hollow and insecure. But outside of that, there's nothing too tilting about it. This master tactician was a dress and some fan weapons short of being featured in the next Dynasty Warriors game. And as any tactician will tell you, teamwork makes the dream work. Our team had been found lacking in our defense of his invades, but his team was certainly on the same page. A great example of this happened towards the end of the game when not one but 2 of his allies joined up arms in final battle. Their proficiency in this was so compelling, it persisted until after the game had ended. Is that tilting? Well, they do say you should be humble in victory and gracious in defeat. And indeed, nothing reminds me of humility more than the stars. A gentle nod to our insignificance in this universe, a vibrant cluster of light to which we ponder our existence and wish our deepest desires. And I can see a whole bunch of stars here. Somehow I didn't tilt this game. I can pretend like I'm a great guy with a moral high ground, but let's be real. If I wasn't streaming, I probably would have fiercely announced my multiple instances of coitus with their mothers. And as my father used to say, the best way to finish something is to make sure you don't leave it incomplete.